Okay, here we go with the start of my COVID bead. But first, the glass I'm using for the red, I'm using maraschino, and then it's going to have some little dots. So the little green dots next on my rack there is green pea, and then the orange was from my shorts, but I believe it is Halloween. And then for my gray, the one in my hand right now, I believe this is sediment. I used a lot of different grays for this. I was just using up my odds and ends and my mislabeled glass. Just trying to go through and use up shorts and whatnot. So I believe this was sediment in my hand. So here I go. I'm just making a really big gather right now. I've decided that for big round spherical beads, I kind of like the approach where you just make a really big gather and then just slump it on in one swoop onto the mandrel. That is kind of fun, and I've been having better success getting a faster sphere. Okay, so I'm warming up my mandrel. I've got a big gather. This is on a faster speed. This normally takes about 3 minutes for me to gather this much glass on my torch. So now I'm going to just put it above the mandrel. And this one was kind of a bit stiffer. Sometimes it flows on a little bit faster, but I'm just heating it up and twisting a little bit and letting it kind of slump on, twisting and turning, and there we go. And so that goes on a little bit wider, and now I just need to use some heat and gravity and a little bit of marvering, and I have a pretty decent sphere. So I'm liking that. So I'm going to speed this up again as well. Just using some gravity, getting my right side evened out a little bit. Now I'm going to angle it so that it slumps down a little bit to the left, evens out some. It's looking a little barrel shape right now, so I am going to get a graphite marver, put it at an angle, and kind of work those edges a little bit to round it out. Same for this side. Still a little barrel-like, so there I go, just sort of marver a little bit. And then a little bit more heat to the middle to pull the glass to the middle a little bit, round it out a little bit more, and some final marvering. And there, that's pretty good circle, pretty good sphere for this bead. Okay, so here's your basic COVID bead. This is what I'm going for, a very simplified version of this. So I've got the gray base, so there's the little 2 orange dots. I'm going to put some of these pairs of orange dots, and then some yellowish green little dots, and then of course the spikes that everybody's familiar with. So we're going to add it in that order. So here we go with the orange dots. So these are just side by side little tiny dots, and I only do 4 sets. That seems to be enough for this bead to give, the impression of those little orange, what were those called? Membrane proteins. So I put kind of 2 on the bottom, 2 sets on the bottom opposite, and then 2 sets towards the top on opposite sides. And now I'm just evening them out a little bit to get them to be the same size. A couple of them are a little bit too big. So pulling off a little bit of glass. And then there I go again, take a little bit of glass off there too. So now they're a little bit more even. Okay, so there are my 4 sets of the orange dots. Now I'm going to take my green, and if you look at where the orange dots fall, they kind of form like a little triangle. So I'm kind of going in between and placing the green dot kind of in between. So that's what I was kind of showing where I was pointing was there's the orange dots, and I'm going to go right in the middle. So then that way I get 4 dots in the middle-ish there. So that way everything's all spaced out well, and so I have plenty of time, plenty of room to put my red spikes. Also, I'm showing you the ends because I don't want to put anything too close to where the mandrel is, because I am going to put some spacer beads on there at the end, so I don't want to have anything too close in the way of the spacer beads. Okay, so here I am with the maraschino. Now I'm going to do a bunch of raised dots, just spread throughout, roughly placed. This is not a precise type of bead. It's just kind of randomly stick them in there where it looks good. So there we go. And I leave them raised, of course, because we're going to form these spikes. Okay, so I started, so now I'm speeding up just to put the rest of them on. And I'm going to kind of spin around once I get them all on and make sure that they're the same size. I'm going to add a little bit extra to the ones that need a little more volume. Okay, taking a look at them all. And also now I'm going to melt them in about halfway. I don't want any undercuts. I want these to be really good and secure. So melt them in about halfway. Up a couple needed a little bit more volume. I'm going to go back in and add that, and then melt that in a little bit and make sure they're all evenly melted in. And then once I get those all melted in the amount that I want, I'm going to go back with my maraschino and I'm going to add some dots to the top of each of the dots. But I don't want them to kind of melt in and form just a large dot. I want them to ball up on top. So I'm going to let the original dots cool down a little bit, and then I'm going to add on top of it, just like that. I'm going to slow that down a little bit so you can see it's just balled up on top. I don't want my initial dots to glow and then add the glass, because then it'll just all mush together. So I'm going to let it cool down a little bit, then add on top, and let it just ball up and form a little ball. These are going to be the spiky parts. And that just fell off because I had attached two stringers together and I didn't do a good seal, so it just sort of popped off there. But now I'm going to speed up here in a second and go around and finish adding the dots to the balls to the top of all of them. And I'm going to go around and make sure that they're all the same size as well. I might have to add a little bit more to some of them as I rotate around and look to see if they're even or not. So make sure each one has a little ball on it. And then yes, I'm adding some glass to some of them to make them even. And so now they're going to look, some of them are not round anymore since I added more glass. They're kind of more like potato shaped. So I'm just going to go around and spot heat those wonky ones and round them up a little bit more. So just kind of spot heat and then let them kind of set up and reform into a ball. And so I'm going to go through and make sure they're all looking okay. And then I'm going to just go through and kind of warm them all up a little bit, because I do want to make sure that they're well attached. So once you see them all spinning and they're all glowing, that is when I'm just making sure they're all nice and warm. Up there we go. Now I'm warming them all up. So once I am satisfied with that, I'm going to grab my graphite rod, which is sharpened at one end. This makes a really great poking tool for sculptural things. Ah, there it is. And so sometimes I rest my hand on my, I have a torch mounted marver, which is what I was trying to do there, but it wasn't showing in the camera. So sometimes for stability I will rest my hand on my marver, but here I'm not, because it wasn't showing in the camera. So I'm just spot heating each of the balls and pressing in gently and putting an indentation in each one. And so this is a great technique for, you know, octopus tentacles and all sorts of things. It's a little bit wider of a poke with this tool, so if I want a good impression, I will pull out the graphite rod to do this. So I'm just going all the way around, spot heating each one, and I think, yes, I got them all poked. So that is pretty much done. So it doesn't look very round at this point, but that's because I'm going to add, at the next step here that I'm going to show you is when it's done and I have some spacer beads and I wire it all up, and then it'll look more round. Right now it's very wonky. But that is the basic COVID bead. And so I'm going to pop this in the kiln and come right back, and we'll show you what it looks like when it's out of the kiln. Just giving it a little bit of insurance heat. Aha, here we go. Okay, this is the next day. This is what it looks like out of the kiln. And you can see all the little dots and everything. And so I'm going to wire it up to look like that little zipper pull right there. So here I have some 21 gauge a head pin, some 3mm little silver balls. These are the spacer beads I made with the maraschino glass, and a lanyard, a zipper pull. So I'm just going to put the spacers, the little silver, and then the maraschino, and then my bead, maraschino spacer again, the silver bead, and now it's going to look more like a round COVID virus. So there we go, that looks much better now. And so now I'm going to show you just quickly how to wire it up, which most of you guys all know, but I take my bent nose pliers and I push down with my thumb, make a 90-degree angle, just like that. And then I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I grab the wire right there. I want a medium-sized loop, so I'm going to put it halfway up. I'm going to wrap around and then take it out, switch it to the bottom side. Now I can finish going around and finish that loop. Pull it out. There's my loop. I'm going to take my bent nose pliers and just grab onto that loop so I have a good handle so I can hold on to it. And I'm going to wrap around. And this is 21 gauge. It's kind of stiff. Plus I have the camera right in the way. So this is not the best wrap job because it was very awkward with the camera right there, the cell phone. I'm not super proud of this wrap, but it shows you basically how I do it. So I wrap around about 3 times until it's a little bit more snug. And then I get my wire cutters. Oops, I bumped the camera right there. There's my wire cutters. And I snip it right at the end there, hold on to it so the wire piece doesn't fly off when I cut it. It's still poking out a teeny bit, so I'm going to grab my bent nose pliers and just sort of press down and tuck in that little wire end so it's not sticking out and sharp. And then sometimes if it's still, even when I press it in, if I can still feel that it's rough, I will take a file and sort of try to file off any sharp edges. But that one got it in well enough, it wasn't rough. And then I just slide it into my zipper pull, my lanyard clip, whatever that's called, and then I'm done. And that's all there is to it. Pretty easy. And so this last part is just me saying hi on camera. Okay, so that is the end of my video. Hope you guys all like making the little COVID bead. They've been a lot of fun to make. They're really easy. So, if you feel like it, give it a try. They make little fun keepsakes for your nurse and teacher friends and just little mementos, and they're pretty easy. So anyways, this is my outfit lately. So I thought I would show you what I'm kind of looking like right now in week 9 of the stay home measure. And Olin just made me a Mai Tai. So no, this is an old fashioned. Mai Tai was yesterday. So anyways, cheers everybody, and see you next year at the retreat. Bye.